Okay, boxing fans, I'm here right now with the man, the one and only, the man who's making his return to boxing, the most anticipated return since Ali got banned. No holds barred boxing. You okay, Ryan?
I'm good, thanks. Thanks for the introduction.
No problem. It's been a while. It's emotional. So we'll get straight into this one. This is Kovalev versus B-Hop, right? Before you tell me who you've got, I'm going to just ask you a few questions on it. Firstly, Kovalev, this is what I found out this week after I've put a lot of money on the fight, which I'm not really happy about. Kovalev's trainer had 5 or 6 years working inside the Bernard Hopkins camp, and he basically said, without come straight out and saying it, I know more shit on Hopkins than the lot of you do. I'm paraphrasing, obviously, but that's basically what he was meaning. What do you think about that? Is that an advantage for Kovalev?
I didn't know that, so yeah, I'd say that's an advantage. If he's worked with him that long, then I'd say that's an advantage.
Yeah, really scared the crap out of me once I put a bit of money on B-Hop. So I was like, I didn't know that. And I mean, what does he know? We don't know. But there's another one for you. People have suggested that Hopkins has won the early war of words, and he's got into the mind of Kovalev, and he's psyching him out. Do you agree with that statement, or do you disagree with that statement?
Bernard Hopkins is, he's known to be able to get into his opponent's head, but then it didn't help him against Chad Dawson, and Chad Dawson has lost to quite a lot of fighters in recent years. That at one time he might have been favourite to beat. So I don't think it's really going to mean anything.
Okay, no problem. Is there any chance of B-Hop winning this fight by KO or Kovalev winning this fight by a decision?
Well, there's no chance at all of Hopkins winning by KO. He just doesn't have the power anymore, even if Kovalev's chin is made of glass, because, he hasn't really had it tested, really. So even if it is made of glass, there's just no way Hopkins is going to be able to knock out. He's not even going to go for a knockout, even if he sees the opening. So that's totally off. As for Kovalev winning by knockout, well, the bookies have got him favourite to win by knockout.
Decision.
Oh yeah, sorry. Kovalev, they've got Kovalev favourite to win by knockout, which is kind of odd because Hopkins has never been knocked out. So the chance of Kovalev winning by decision is far greater than Hopkins winning by knockout. But I still think it's quite interesting that the bookies think that Kovalev might win by knockout. Although knockout does also include stoppage, so that could be injury, anything like that.
Okay. So the other thing I've been thinking about in this fight, which is another way that I could get screwed on my money, is, do you think there's a chance of a robbery occurring in this fight? Look at the politics. Do you see any way the politics is flowing or anything like that? Do you think there's any chance of robbery?
Well, if there is a robbery, I'd say it's probably going to go to Kovalev and the reason I say that is because I think that out of the two, well, actually, I don't know why I say that, because the reason I'm saying that is if it goes the distance, I think Kovalev is more likely to win more of the rounds. So what am I trying to say here? Basically, I think that if it does go the distance, I think that Kovalev would have won more of the rounds. But so I suppose what I'm saying there is that I think Hopkins might get a robbery. But yeah, I can't see a robbery happen. Like I said, I think Kovalev is going to win too many rounds, and Hopkins doesn't seem to win rounds very clearly. He seems to get tangled up a lot. He uses a lot of dirty tactics. So yeah, I don't know, but I don't think there would be a robbery.
Okay, so another one for you. Is the winner of this fight, we're looking more past it now, is the winner of this fight the undisputed champion at light heavyweight?
Probably, because both of them are probably the two best fighters at the weight. I mean, I know Stevenson has got his claim to that, but I don't think Stevenson has beaten quite the caliber that Hopkins and Kovalev have. I mean, okay, Stevenson knocked out Chad Dawson, but he'd been beaten twice before that, and he's been going downhill for quite a while now. He's beaten guys like Don George, who's quite good. Tavoris Cloud, but again, hadn't Tavoris Cloud already lost to Bernard Hopkins? Yep. And I think he was coming off. And Tony Bellew, he's sort of European level really. Whereas Kovalev, I think he beat Cleverly, who was a better opponent than any of those I just named, I think. Ismail Silak, he's quite good as well. I don't know, but and Gabriel Campillo he stopped, and Campillo's always been an underrated fighter. So I'd say, and Hopkins of course has beaten plenty of fighters at light heavyweight. So I'd say whoever wins this is probably number one, and Stevenson's the only other guy out there worth fighting.
Yeah. If Hopkins is to win this fight, is he one of the greatest boxers of all time?
I wouldn't say one of the greatest. I'd say one of the greatest old fighters. That's what it is. He's one of the best old fighters. So he'd be able to put his name up there with, say, like Archie Moore, old Archie Moore. So guys who were really good in their later days. But he's never been a classic fighter. He's beaten guys, but let's face it, the guys he's beaten, like Antonio Tarver and an old Roy Jones and the middleweight king Kelly Pavlik, although it was at a different weight, and Winky Wright and all that, and Jean Pascal. His biggest win to date was probably the win against Antonio Tarver, which sort of really made him, a two-weight legend. And
Oscar De La Hoya?
Sorry?
Oscar De La Hoya? Yeah,
but he shouldn't have been at middleweight in the first place. So I don't think that was. Felix Trinidad was a good win at middleweight, but anyway, I'm talking mostly about his wins in his late 30s and 40s.
Yeah.
He will go down as being a great old fighter, but no, I don't think any historian will think, Hopkins could have beaten Marvin Hagler, or Hopkins might have beaten, Carlos Monzon, or maybe not even someone like Sugar Ray Robinson or something. So I don't think he'll rank up there as a pound for pound sort of elite, but he will rank up there with the greatest fighters who accomplish stuff in their old age.
Mm-hmm. Okay, who do you think will win this fight then, and how?
I think Kovalev wins, and I think he will probably win. See, I'm thinking he will probably win by stoppage, but stoppage meaning that can mean a load of different things. That could be a cut, which I don't think he'll get a cut because I don't think Hopkins ever has been cut. At least I don't remember ever seeing him cut. It might be something of a little bit farcical, like the fight against Chad Dawson. You might see him sort of like injure his hip as he goes down. But I think he'll end up. Do you know what? It might be something like him getting floored 3 times in a round, and the referee, calling it a halt, and Hopkins protesting, saying, "Hey man, I'm fine." Because I just can't see Hopkins actually getting knocked out, because it's never happened. It probably never will. Mm-hmm. But just one final thought. But then, everyone said that about Johnny Tapia, Wayne McCulloch, Julio Cesar Chavez. None of those guys were meant to get knocked out, and they all got stopped late in their careers.
True. Well, that's all we got for you right now, Ryan. We'll just put you to the side, and then I'll bring in Paulie Mack. So, you okay, Paul?
Yeah, mate, I'm here.
That's brilliant. I'm just going to run through a few of these questions with you now as well. So, did you know about Kovalev's trainer being inside the Hopkins camp for about 5-6 years?
No, I didn't, to be perfectly honest. Not until I watched that 24/7 camp.
No, me until then, yeah.
Yeah, I've watched Hopkins for quite a while, and I'd never noticed that guy there. Maybe it was just me not paying attention or whatever, but if he was there, maybe he was just like in the background and never like at the forefront.
Yeah.
Or maybe he was. Maybe he was there and I just didn't notice him. But no, I honestly didn't know that.
Do you think it's an advantage?
Oh yeah, it's got to be an advantage, to be honest, because he knows stuff about Hopkins that he can teach Kovalev. I don't think it'll be stuff like stuff to help Kovalev physically. I think it'll just be stuff to help Kovalev mentally. As in, he'll prepare Kovalev for Hopkins' shenanigans, sort of things. You know, he's not going to. You know, I don't think he's going to be telling Kovalev, make sure you do this in this round because this is the round that Hopkins likes to take off or something like that, or this is how Hopkins moves. Make sure you land the punch at this exact moment. It won't be anything like that. I think he'll tell Kovalev about the dirty tactics and stuff that you can expect from Hopkins because he knows what Hopkins is all about. He knows how Hopkins plans for a fight.
Yeah, here's another thing I was thinking. This is what I was thinking. Right, he'll also be telling him stuff like, you know, because Kovalev said in the thing, wow, he's like 50 years old. Wow, you know, like, he's a great fighter. You know, and then he's saying stuff like that, and he'll be saying to him stuff like, yeah, but he's an old man. I've been in the camp. I've seen the good, the bad, the ugly, and I'm going to tell you the ugly and all the crap that goes on. And he's going to tell him all this stuff to get into Kovalev's head that he is human, that he is going to basically get knocked out.
Yeah, again, stuff to help Kovalev mentally, sort of thing, to get Kovalev to not, I wouldn't say fear Hopkins, but not let Hopkins bother him, like he does with a lot of other fighters, because Hopkins wins so many fights before the bell's rung, and I don't think that's going to happen this time, because especially not with this guy in Kovalev's corner.
So people have suggested Hopkins has won the early war of words. Do you agree or disagree with that?
I agree with it, but when does he never win the war of words? To be honest, he's one of the best trash talkers or fight hypers in the business, isn't he?
Yeah.
Every time there's a big fight, he always manages to, get everyone interested, make everyone think it's a big deal. You know, I remember when he came over to England and he made a big ruckus with Joe Calzaghe, and everyone was saying, "Oh, he's got the better of Joe Calzaghe. He's got Joe Calzaghe rattled." And then what happened when they fought? You know, Calzaghe didn't look at all bothered. Same with Chad Dawson. Everyone was saying about, oh, he's got in Chad Dawson's head, he's messed about with Chad Dawson. And when the fight actually happened, there was nothing, Chad Dawson wasn't at all bothered. So, again, he always wins the war of words, but just because he has, doesn't mean it will mean anything. It does sometimes, but not with everyone. And I don't think it will mean anything with Kovalev.
Yeah. I'm going to give you another perception on this, if he's won the war of words. People are saying, though, like, he doesn't seem like he's reacting well to it, like, to what Hopkins is saying and stuff. Well, is my thoughts on it. The whole thing happened when they were both on the TV thing, talking to Kellerman or someone, right? And, Kellerman's not stupid. He had to talk, quite slowly and quite openly to Kovalev because he doesn't speak much English, right? So if you've got B-Hop, who you can barely... let's put it like this, he's got an accent, a thick accent, hasn't he? Right? And he doesn't speak he won't speak to help you out, will he? No. Right? So it's probably all went over his head anyway.
Yeah,
probably didn't know, and he's just going, yeah, I'm gonna knock him out, I fight them, I beat them, and he's just saying generic stuff that he thinks,
that the cameras want to hear, yeah.
Yeah, because he doesn't understand what's going on. I mean, it's like if I say to you in a different language, I'll say, where's the supermarket? Donde está el supermercado? Okay, right now you give me the I don't speak Spanish very well at all, by the way, believe it or not, right? But you give me the directions back now. Where is the supermarket? It's all gonna go straight over my head. You know what I mean? And I'll have to say like, oh, gracias, yeah, because I don't understand it. That's what it might be like for Kovalev, and it's like you don't know what's going on. That's just another perception, maybe, into this war of words that he's gone through with him. So what do you think about the chances of B-Hop winning a knockout?
I think there's a slight chance, to be perfectly honest. If I was a betting man, I wouldn't bet on it, but Kovalev, as there's apparently rumours that he's got a bit of a glass chin. I've only heard that, apparently he got hurt quite a bit in the amateurs. And that was why no one wanted to sign him when he turned pro. That's why he's with Cafe Duver and not Golden Boy or Top Rank, but that's what I've heard. And another thing I've noticed, Kovalev does cut sometimes. He got cut against Cleverly. Not a bad cut, just, a little nick over his eye.
Yeah. And
Hopkins is the type of guy where if he spots a little cut on, the eyebrow or the eyelid, he's going to target it.
Yeah.
I mean, he's not going to do Kovalev any favours at all. So Is there any chance of him sparking Kovalev out? No, absolutely none on this earth, I don't think. Even if Kovalev has got a bit of a bad shin, because Hopkins is just not a puncher anymore. He hasn't been a puncher for about 10 years. And, well, I wouldn't be too surprised if Kovalev gets cut and maybe Hopkins tries to go for the technical knockout sort of thing. Yeah. That's possible, in my opinion.
What about Kovalev winning a decision?
Again, it's something that's not impossible. Is it likely? No. But just because something's unlikely doesn't mean it can't happen. What if, let's just say, for example, let's say Kovalev knocks Hopkins down 2 or 3 times in the early rounds, and he gets such a big lead on the scorecards that Hopkins can't catch up. Mm-hmm. It sort of happened in the Pascal fight, the first fight, where I know a lot of people think Hopkins just did enough to win it, but in the end, Pascal did so well in the early rounds with the knockdowns that on 2 of the judges' scorecards, he got such a big lead, Hopkins couldn't make up the ground. And right. Maybe that happens. If Kovalev can have a really, really strong start and get a few 10-8 rounds in there, maybe he'll get so far ahead on the cards that Hopkins just won't be able to catch up, no matter how many rounds he wins in the second half.
Yeah, it's definitely that's the more probable of the things that could happen in this fight. I would say there's more chance of Kovalev winning a decision than there is of Hopkins winning a knockout. But we'll move on. One thing I hate in boxing is just robberies and stuff, especially when I've got big money on the fight. What do you think the chances are of either fighter gaining a robbery victory?
I can't see that happening, to be honest, because what would be the point? Am I right in saying this is going to be on a Golden Boy card?
I don't know. It's on HBO, isn't it?
I mentioned that because Kovalev's with Cafe Duva, yeah. and what's their promotional company called? Main Events.
Main Events, yeah.
Yeah, main Events are, they're a decent little promotional outfit, but they haven't got a lot of swing, really, have they?
No.
With the networks, it's not like Golden Boy or Top Rank, where, all right, I'm not going to come out outright and say it, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
And
they do influence the judges, yeah. I know. It is the truth.
Okay, you can say it. I won't. But Main Events, I don't think I've got the swing in order to get away with something like that. They wouldn't be able to pressure the judges. Whereas Hopkins isn't he like a partner or something with Golden Boy? Like there's
something going on with him and Golden Boy, but I'm not sure what.
Yeah, he's not. He represents Golden Boy, a lot of like press conferences and stuff. He's got some sort of deal with them where he's got like a percentage. So he's not going to get jobs by Golden Boy if Golden Boy are the host of this. And I can't see it happening, to be perfectly honest. The only way you could argue it could happen is maybe they want to give Kovalev the decision because they still hope a Stevenson fight can happen. And they'll just look at Hopkins like, oh, he's an old man, who cares if he gets robbed? Then, we'll get rid of that old lion and make sure the young lion wins because there's bigger fights for him. But again, I don't see that happening because Hopkins is pretty high up with Golden Boy. They wouldn't let that happen. And Main Events, who look after Kovalev, I don't really think they've got the power to influence the judges or anything. So, no, I don't see it happening either way for either guy.
Yeah, I agree. I pretty much agree because I don't see the point in anybody giving a robbery decision to Hopkins because, like I said, he's too old to really invest in. I think, if you're going to invest in someone, you're going to invest in, a younger product, aren't you? Something like that. But with Kovalev, it's also like, I don't understand why they do it with him because Main Events, they haven't got the pulling power to really influence the judges. And why would Golden Boy do it unless they have options on Kovalev? So I don't see it. But we'll go to the next question. Is the winner of this fight the undisputed champion at light heavyweight?
Yeah, in my opinion. Because, okay, some people are going to say, oh no, Stevenson, you can't say you're number one until you beat Stevenson. But at the end of the day, Stevenson had the chance to have both of these fights, and he said no. He ran a mile when HBO tried to put him against Kovalev, ran away to another network, and apparently I read this week that he was Hopkins' team offered him the fight, but he priced himself out and wanted too much money. So at the end of the day, Stevenson's the guy who turned his back on these two fights, and when you turn your back on these two fights, you can't call yourself number one. So until he fights either one of these guys, he's not in the discussion, in my opinion, or he doesn't merit being in the discussion. I know he's got a belt, I know he's knocking guys out, and a lot of people are thinking he's a good fighter, but at the end of the day, you can't call yourself number one until you actually want to prove you're number one against the other two best guys. And these guys are willing to prove it against each other, and he's not. So, right. Yeah, whether you think either one of these guys will beat Stevenson or not, at the end of the day, the winner of this has the right to call themselves number one, whereas, in my opinion, Stevenson doesn't, unless he steps in the ring and actually is willing to prove it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's another thing I was thinking about quite recently. The idea of ranking a guy as the lineal champion and therefore the number one in the division is like null and void again now, because they just avoid each other and avoid good fights, you know what I mean, and the other danger fights. Nowadays, it's like everyone has got a claim, you know, everyone who holds a title, because there's so many of them, has a claim to be the number one champion. It's just the guys who get in the ring and actually duke it out who, you know, who end up having the better claim at the end of the day. Because I can't remember the last time we've had a real unified, all the belts in one, you know, in one camp champion for a long time. I can't remember the last time that was the case. I mean, it's not even a heavyweight with Klitschko anymore, so I don't know. I'm not sure what's going to happen. Because in you know, like reality, I would love for the winner of this fight to fight Stevenson, but I just don't see it happening. Also, so we'll move on. If Hopkins does win this fight and makes me a load of money, is he one of the greatest boxers of all time?
He's already one of the greatest boxers of all time in terms of accomplishments, in my opinion. You know, is he one of the top in terms of ability? No. But at the end of the day, you can have all the ability in the world. If you don't achieve much with it, then it doesn't mean anything. And True. With the ability he's got, he's achieved loads. You know, he was the undisputed middleweight champion for 10 years? Mm-hmm. Something like that. He was undisputed light heavyweight champion for a little bit, you know, after he beat Pascal. And yeah. I think didn't he have the WBC belt on a lineal belt?
Yeah, I think so, yeah. Basically,
yeah, this was about 2-3 years ago. This was when Stevenson was still at super middleweight, and when Kovalev...
Yeah, Chad was lineal, then, you know, he lost to Pascal. Pascal lost to Hopkins.
Yeah.
Hopkins
and Kovalev,
to,
you know...
What's his face? Chad.
Dawson, yeah. He was number one for about...
Ward, yeah, and then...
Yeah, he was number one for about a year at light heavyweight, when Kovalev wasn't really on the scene, and when Stevenson was down super middleweight. So he's been number one in 2 weight divisions at one point. Mm-hmm. Okay, he fought at Kelly Pavlik at super middleweight, and Kelly Pavlik was undefeated, I think, and absolutely ruined Kelly Pavlik's career. Took his soul, I think is the term.
That's correct.
Yeah. In terms of his achievements, I think he deserves to be in the top 20 of all time. But if he wins this fight, then, in my opinion, he deserves to be in the top 10. Not, again, in terms of his achievements, not his ability, his achievements. Because there's so many fighters who are not willing to do what he's willing to do, which is fight the best opponents available, go for the best titles, you know, seek toughest challenges. I definitely think he deserves credit if he wins this, because Hopkins, he's been in so many hard fights over the years, so many fights where people didn't think he'd win, and the vast majority of them, and if he manages to win this as well, then you've got to tip your hat to, whether you like him or not as a person. He's absolutely not ducked anyone, and he's always tried to, you know, he's always tried to win as fights possible and win the legacy fights, and not enough fighters nowadays do that.
Yeah, that's true. What I was going to say, last question is, who do you think will win this fight and how?
You know what, mate? I'm gonna go for Hopkins. I'm not like you. I don't have money on him. I don't have any reason to back him other than gut feeling. And to be honest, I think Hopkins is going to pull it out the bag again. And you know, I've wrote him off so many times, and he's proved me wrong so many times. And the reason I think he'll do it is because I could see the fight being very similar to the Jean Pascal fights. where he'll have to weather the storm early. He might get knocked down, but the second half of the fight, Hopkins always comes good. He always manages to sweep the second half of a fight, and I can see him doing the same here, especially with Kovalev having questionable stamina, because he's not done many rounds in his career. Has he only ever gone like 8 rounds once?
Yeah.
He's never been past 8 rounds.
No, he's never been past that, yeah.
Never been past 8 rounds. He looked quite tired against Nathan Cleverly in only the 3rd or 4th round that was.
That's right.
And he threw a load of punches in that fight, and you know he's going to go for the early knockout. It's what Kovalev does. You know, he's going to go all out for Hopkins, all guns blazing, throw a load of punches, and maybe he might get a knockdown or two, but Hopkins is the ultimate survivor. He'll survive the early storm, and I think in the second half of the fight, when Kovalev's gassed out really, I think Hopkins will just, you know, do what Hopkins does best, and just win the fight ugly, and nick the rounds, and probably win a decision, a close-ish decision, but a clear decision. I'm going to go for Hopkins to take the fight.
Okay, Hopkins takes the fight for you. For me, I think Hopkins is also going to take the fight, but I think it could be touch and go. I mean, the way I look at it, I think I've worked out Kovalev. Okay, now listen, this is quite good for me. Okay, Kovalev seems to be one of those guys where he's got great power if you stand off him. So a lot like Kostya. If you stand off him, he'll nail you, and then you'll do like a silly dance like Zab Judah did. Now, Hopkins isn't going to do that. He's going to rush in and, you know, smother him, and try to land something to smother him, And I can see Hopkins doing that for the majority of the second half of the fight, and racking up enough points to win the fight, and take away from Kovalev's power. So, that is my theory. Next week we'll see the theory put into practice. If Hopkins wins, I win a lot of money. If Hopkins loses, I'm going to be in a beast drop. Thanks for listening, guys. I hope you enjoyed this little